And we're back. This is the Chad and Cheese podcast. I'm Joel Cheeseman. He's Chad Sowash, and we're chatting with Matt King, Director of HR Technology at Domino's Pizza. You highlighted speed, and I think that's incredibly important. I think my guess is if Domino's takes too long, I'm at Pizza Hut or Papa John's or McDonald's or any other sort of fast food or hourly job. But I know that you're also very aware of your brand and what Domino's means and the promise. And I mean, even when we were kids, it was like 30 minutes or less, which I know has changed.
yeah.
But like
Oh,
those things stick with you. And I think that they stay with you
Or free.
in the job search, experience. So how do you balance speed, but then also the experience is something that Domino's, supports?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I would start by saying it is a balance, right? And I think, across the entire US footprint, it's hard to find one size fits all because, as I mentioned, there's variations in how franchisees choose to run their hiring. I think that, in terms of like sort of how we identify as a brand, there are certain things that are just sort of core tenets of who we are: operational efficiency, speed, customer service. These are the types of things that we tend to select for in terms of our hiring as well.
Yeah.
And, every franchisee and like every business unit and corporate sort of makes some of their own decisions about how to prioritize those different factors. But that's the DNA of the brand, right? It's customer focus. It's amazing product. It's, hiring at the speed of our business, and our business moves very, very fast operationally. Yeah. So I would say that like, because that is part of who we are, that focus on efficiency, that focus on accuracy.
It almost sounds like speed is the brand.
The speed is the brand.
You're killing two birds with one stone. Not only are we fast, but we're supporting the brand of speed and efficiency.
Exactly. But I think, the other thing too is like you walk into a Domino's store and you expect the store to be clean. You expect the people to be friendly.
Yeah.
You expect your pizza to be made with a smile. You expect the same pizza every time, and you expect the same level of value every time.
Yeah.
And so I think that, there is sort of a representation of that in how we choose to run hiring as a corporate entity, and our franchisees choose to run hiring. And I think one of the things that really helps us create sort of the centralization point is the brand-wide career site, because that allows us to sort of tell the EVP within the context of our branding. Our career site tells the story of who we are. It tells the story of what we're about. It tells the story of our history. It tells the story to prospective candidates of like, if you're into these values, if you're into these priorities in a job that you work, there's opportunity here for you. And so I think regardless of how franchisees choose to structure their hiring processes or how we do on the corporate side, you can still sort of tell the same story about what it's like to work in a Domino's store. And I think that's really critical. And I think, part of the reason that having sort of centralized employment branding focus, at least at the high level, has been really advantageous for us.
So talk about choice, because there are plenty of platforms that are out there. You've chosen SmartRecruiters, right? You obviously, did due diligence around that. What was that process? What did it look like, number one? And then from a, not just corporate, but also from a franchisee standpoint, I mean, how much did they get to weigh in? And then also, what's the penetration rate right now for usage? How what's it look like? 90% franchises are using, 100%. What's that look like?
Yeah. So the selection process, it helps to understand where we came from.
Yeah.
So we were on Connexa before, and we had a very...
I'm sorry. Connexa, Brass Ring, 37 other names. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like IBM Connexa Brass Ring on cloud, which, when we implemented it was, I wouldn't say it was a cutting edge system, but was, relatively modern compared to what else was in the space. The problem was we grew a lot of other technologies around it and integrated them. And so what we ended up with was a very unwieldy tech stack. And so you'd have your automation layer, you'd have your communication layer, you'd have your core ATS, you'd have the recruiter facing hired score driven overlay to Connexa.
Gotcha.
And it all sort of worked, but it was very expensive. It was incredibly unwieldy to maintain. And it candidly just quite expensive. And so what we were looking for was, well, we're seeing a lot of movement in the ATS space into more integrated solutions where, a texting engine, communications automation engine, CRM, these things are sort of baked into the offering. And so we found that in SmartRecruiters. We did a lengthy RFP process. You asked about franchise involvement in that process. When we source technologies like this, typically we'll have franchisee focus groups that will weigh in on behalf of the system. And they're deeply involved in the requirements definition and design and validation of the solution.
You're saying the franchisees have an opinion
They
about
absolutely,
stuff. Yeah, I bet
they
they
absolutely
do.
have an opinion,
And
and they,
wait.
yeah, they do, and they, they call out things that we miss, right? Because they're on the front lines. They see things we don't see
Day to day.
day to day.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like we can be very prescriptive about how we want hiring to work for the people that work for Domino's corporate.
Yeah.
We can't be prescriptive about that for our franchise operators. They have different needs, and you don't know what they are until you bring them in. The great thing is SmartRecruiters was fantastically receptive to having those conversations. So it was almost like we were doing sort of two implementations simultaneously. One for corporate, much more prescriptive, much more buttoned up in terms of like the rigidity of our hiring processes, and then one for our franchisees, which was about maximizing flexibility.
Gotcha.
And by and large, that's what we've gotten. SmartRecruiters, I think, has been on a journey of evolution. I think they've learned a lot from us and vice versa, especially in the high volume space.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you're actually helping them through the piloting of Winston, which we've seen Winston all over the place lately. Talk a little bit about that, especially the genesis of that conversation of, hey, we're looking to do a big pivot. I mean, they literally were modeled off of legacy systems, and they're pivoting very hard into agentic. Was that exciting for you, knowing that they were your platform? A little risky, maybe? I mean, talk a little bit about that, because you got involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have like a sort of internal debate raging all the time of
Me
like,
too.
am I a Luddite about this stuff? Like,
This is about, KFC or
Chipotle or Taco Bell is usually the two. The fight within. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, Matt,
I mean, I feel your trauma,
Yeah,
man.
you do.
It's yeah, I mean, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, that I think that like conversational application experiences are table stakes now.
Mhm.
Like I don't think that those are edgy or cool or differentiating. And I think what has been like reassuring, I think, about the realization SmartRecruiters has had about their position in the market is I think there's a pretty important space there for them to occupy. You're going to have like your big enterprises that have Workday, and they're going to use Workday as their ATS, but they're going to have like a really nice candidate facing front end, and they're going to optimize the recruiter experience with, other bolt-on tools.
Right.
But what about companies that are in a position where they're either like in the process of choosing a new enterprise ERP, new HCM? They may not want to invest in something like Workday because it's a little bit bulky for their needs. I want to go with like a tier 1.5 or tier 2 HCM vendor.
More
But
nimble, maybe.
yeah, exactly. But they really need super high quality, minimize the complexity of your tech stack ATS solutions.
Yeah.
And I think SmartRecruiters is poised to really be impactful in that space. And in terms of the design relationship, from the moment Winston was a glint in the product team's eye, we've been, I think, on the same page that this is something that is necessary to make sure that like they remain competitive in this space.
Mhm.
There are a lot of brands and companies out there who want to take the same approach we did, which was we want one vendor we can work with who can do all this stuff reliably. And so what are the things that are going to make you competitive if that's what people are looking for? Conversational application, recruiter enablement, both of those things are the places where I see the most value in Winston, and seem to be the places that they're focusing.
All right, let's leave it there, Matt. Thanks for hanging out with us today. This has been the Chad and Cheese Podcast. For Joel Cheeseman, Chad Sowash, this has been the Sessions AI Frontline Series. We out.
We out.